Hello, everyone. Today is Wednesday, October 22nd, 2025. And joining me again today is Mr. Irwin Simon, CEO of Tilray Brands, who needs no introduction. Irwin, thank you very much for taking the time again to meet with me today. And it's great to have you back on.
It's really a pleasure to be here, and it's always great to speak to you, Ralph.
Kudos to you on the team for a stellar Q1. Last time we spoke, you missed analyst estimates. This time you beat by quite a large margin, and you also had positive net income of 1.5 million. It appears 2025 seems to be really a transformative year for Tilray. Would you agree with that statement?
Listen, I think as you come back, and it's not about each quarter, we've been building Tilray out since 2019 and 2020. And, it's now 7 years that cannabis is legal in Canada. It's almost 5 years since we've been in the beer business with Sweetwater and the other acquisitions, and then growing out the international. So it's coming together. And I think that's the big piece. It's not about one quarter, it's what's coming together. It's the infrastructure that we built, it's the teams, it's the brands. In growing cannabis today, it's a whole different world. No one has ever grown 137 metric tons of cannabis in a country. There's no one ever grown cannabis in 5.5 million square feet. In growing cannabis, it's an agriculture product. And with that, you have something called, during the summer heat, you have irrigation, you have yields, which you got to deal with. And the big thing is, how do I get that quality product for my consumers? And it's not like growing in a little greenhouse or growing in your backyard or growing on, the balcony at home. It's how do I get the potency? And then as we take the different strains and the different genetics and do what we say we're going to do. So it's the science behind it and the AI. And I think people think just grow a plant. It's a marijuana plant. It's a cannabis plant. It's whatever. And that's, you just, take the flower and you put it and put it in a package. There's the processing to it. And when we say, what the potency is, we have the support and the science behind it. And then it's the quality control that we have to, pass when it goes through, and the reports we got to go back to Health Canada in regards to our medical cannabis. When a doctor prescribes it, and it's for sleep, for anxiety, and the different strains that it's worked. So there's a lot that's gone into it, a lot of learning, a lot of cost, a lot of investment. In fact, to the point about the quarter, it's finally coming together where we're perfecting all these things.
And you've been making a big dent in the debt as well. You reduced to the net debt to about 4 million, I think it was. What do you think in terms of like a debt-free window, like a timeline? Is that a milestone that you could see happening by the end of, say, fiscal year 2026? Would that be a realistic timeline?
So listen, I could go net debt tomorrow, just pay off all my debt, and not have cash, and basically I'm just about debt free. But listen, you'll always have debt no matter what, whether it's mortgages on your buildings and how you finance that. And good businesses today, every business out there, whether you're Walmart, Amazon, Tesla, every company has somewhat debt. It's the levels of debt that you could ultimately support within the company. And I think that's the big thing is, what is the level of debt that's, that you can live with, that you can sleep with. And I think the big thing is, listen, when our stock got down into the 40, 50 cent levels, if we were running with 6-7 times debt and debt levels like that, that's when companies are in trouble. And I think what the important thing for us is, hey, what I always slept well at night, my levels of debt and generating free cash and generating cash was something that was important to me. And I think the important thing is, from a standpoint, it's manageable debt that you can finance through your free cash flow. And I think that's what's important. Will we ever be debt free? Listen, I think from a business standpoint, it's not probably smart strategically to be debt free, because if you take your cash and reinvest it back in other things, I think it's a good thing for business. But it's not smart to be out there with high levels of debt that can get you into trouble.
Right.
And
you touched on it a bit last time.
I'm very comfortable, having debt levels at 3 times, and I've all my companies throughout the years. I've leveled, that's the levels I'd like to be at. And how do I pay down debt? And that's from a personal standpoint. Debt is debt. And I've always hated debt. And I like to sleep at night. And debt is not death. Death keeps you up at night too, but debt is something definitely keeps you up at night if you have too much of it.
Absolutely. Well, like you said, as long as it's manageable, not necessarily a bad thing. One thing I wanted to bring up, we had quite a few people in the community and retail investors who were just a little disgruntled, I guess would be a good word, at the fact that, we had a run up in the share price, and kudos to you and the team for regaining NASDAQ compliance again and avoiding that reverse split. What can you say about the dilution, the ATM that came out right after earnings? It's not just Tilray, the whole sector kind of, faded after we didn't get any update with regards to potential reform in the US. And what would you say, what was the reason for doing that ATM and releasing that news right after the quarter, especially given the fact that you're so close to that $1 mark after just regaining the compliance with the NASDAQ minimum bid price rule?
We've never done a new ATM. We've had the existing ATM out there that I think we've done 2 years ago. And I think that's what all we've had. So we've never come out there and come out with a new ATM. Have we tapped, since our current ATM? Yes. But what I've always said is the ATM and the money that's coming in from the ATM should be accretive to our, business, should be accretive to our earnings. And this money should be used either for acquisitions or, like I said, to pay down debt. It's not ultimately to go into operations. The operations, cash flow should support operations. So just to be clear, there is no new ATM going on at Tilray today. Is there an existing ATM out there that we're tapping? And there's, with that, yes, but not a new ATM at all. And from a dilution standpoint, hopefully the cash that's coming from the ATM is used for acquisitions or used to pay down debt, which ultimately extinguishes debt and interest. So it's accretive to earnings and it's accretive to the business.
Okay. Thank you for that. Yeah, I thought it seemed a little strange too. I was a bit confused. I thought it was just kind of an update, if you will, to that ATM. I don't have it up in front of me, and I know we don't have a lot of time, but that clears that up. It doesn't matter. You've it came straight from the horse's mouth.
So there is absolutely no new ATM going on at
perfect.
If in anything, there's an existing ATM, and
that's what I thought.
Yes, that's what it is.
Okay, great. Well, it's good to get clarity on that, and I think we'll have a lot of happy people after that.
I think it's important what you said is being a large shareholder and being one of the largest individual shareholders, myself, dilution is something that's important to me. And if we're going to issue shares or going to use it, I want it to be accretive, whether it's earnings, whether it's to the bottom line, etc. So it's not out there for operations, and that's what's important.
That makes sense. Well, I want to move over now to the U.S. side of things and the hemp HD9 beverage segment. We had some big news out in the last few days and weeks that most recently was Target, and the most recent was Circle K, but before that there was Target. So Target launching hemp drinks in Minnesota and about 10 locations in the state of Minnesota, and then Florida Circle K locations offering hemp drinks across the state. And we're seeing over, I think it's 900 stores. We're seeing more and more adoption. Have you had any discussions with big box retailers like Circle K or Target? Are you even on the shelves there? What can you share on that topic?
So today we're not on the shelf at Target, okay? But with our Manitoba Harvest and with our beer business, we sell them a lot of product. And I think what's important is what's the programs behind it, and how do we make sure we're going to market it to consumers. And there's Target, there's Walmart, there's Whole Foods, there's Kroger, there's Cub stores in Minnesota. So what's important is for us that we're out there talking to all these box stores, all these retailers, and all these convenience stores. And, whether it's Total Wine, whether it's ABC, liquor, whether it's other retailers, we're absolutely within there today. And what's important for us Rod, is we're looked upon as the leader in this industry because of our beverage business and because of our cannabis business. And what we want to make
Hmm.
sure when we go into these box stores, we got a real program, there's a real commitment. It's just not a marketing gimmick because it's the new in fashion thing for the retailer and it's going to work. So
Yeah.
it's not like here's a new toy in town, we're going to try it. It's got to be right for Tilray or our overall business. And I will tell you, whether it's Whole Foods, whether it's Walmart, whether it's Sprouts, whether it's all these, we're out knocking on their doors to show them the product and to make sure we can put that right programming behind it and we're doing it right. And the last thing we want is ever having issues out there with the wrong retailer, the wrong program, the wrong marketing, and making sure that we're marketing to the right consumer.
Right. Yeah, and I think once people try your drinks, I can speak firsthand. They're absolutely amazing and tons of great reviews. So we'll hopefully in the next.
The drinks are tremendous, and it's
Yeah.
amazing. You know, and I'll say this here: the calls I'm getting from other companies out there that want to understand what we're doing. So you talk about the box retailers. I'm
Mhm.
talking about whether it's other alcohol companies, other beer companies, other beer distributors that are real interested in this here. And
Yeah.
again, we're going to make sure we do it right. This is something that I expect to be here for a long time.
Mhm.
It's not, it's not just a short time. It's sort of like put it everywhere, stack them high, and watch it fly. I want to make sure there's a good strategic marketing program. We got the right products, whether it's 5 milligrams, 10 milligrams, what's the right product behind there, and we can support that, and it's going to sell.
And are your drinks GMP certified in the U.S.?
Our drinks are not GMP certified in the U.S., and they don't have to be.
They don't have to be, just because of the Farm Bill, right? As long as they.
They don't have to be.
Perfect. And I know you have MedMen as a potential, post kind of legalization in the US and the IP for that. Lots of opportunities there. You mentioned on the previous interview that, your original vision was to make it into kind of a franchise model. What about other opportunities in the US? There's the AYR wellness auction coming up on November 10th. Is there any interest in that? Could you explore any opportunities in the AYR auction?
And we're not looking at anything within the AYR auction that's happening. We still own the IP for MedMan. We have a couple stores still in Southern California out there, which, we continue to focus on. We own the IP. We can open up MedMan stores anywhere. Ultimately, we could use the IP if we had to. But, one of the big things, again, when something happens in the U.S., Rod, it's about the grow, it's about the way you're going to market it. And either whether it's our current Tilray Medical, whether it's our Fria Medical, whether it's some of our other medical brands out there, we would look to do it with our balance sheet. And, you asked me before from an ATM standpoint, would we make sure, in using the ATM and we have cash, could we acquire someone? But right now, first of all, legally, we can't do anything because of our NASDAQ listing. So we couldn't even buy anything within the AYR. And secondly, I like to know what I can do and just instead of just guessing out there what, could happen. And I'll never forget when I first took over Fria, everybody said, you have to be in the U.S., you have to be in the U.S. They're going legal the next day. You got to be in the U.S. And I stepped back and said, no, Canada is the only country in the world where cannabis is legal. And we were totally, screwed up in Canada. Let's get Canada right.
Absolutely.
So with that, there's going to be, in regards to rescheduling, once something happens there's going to be so many opportunities for Tilray, either to buy, to partner, or to take our own current IP, whether it's MedMen, whether it's Tilray Medical, whether it's a Fria Medical or some of our other medical brands, and do it within the U.S. market. I'd rather, if I had to spend a little more, at least know where I'm going and go out there and do all these things now where it's going to would become obsolete depending upon what happens.
Well, just so you mentioned selling products in the US, just so everybody's aware, like you are shipping through the e-commerce platform. You can go to drinkhappyflower.com. You can order it in Florida. You can order the hemp drinks in Minnesota as well. So people are a little confused. They don't think that you're able to sell at all, but you are selling the hemp drinks because, like you said, they're legal under the Farm Bill.
Right.
So if anybody hasn't already checked out the website, you can do that.
Yeah, exactly. On the hemp drinks, because of the Farm Bill, just from a cannabis standpoint, Tilray cannot sell anything from a THC cannabis standpoint within the U.S. markets.
Right. And you mentioned potential for doing a deal in the U.S. upon reform, whether it's rescheduling, full-blown legalization, and descheduling. What about the Trump social media post on Truth Social about the endocannabinoid system he was endorsing? CBD and the medical side of things. Has that kind of changed your approach at all? Would you say that you're more actively researching opportunities in the U.S.? Did that create sort of a bigger sense of urgency there?
Well, I think, you come back and some of the stuff that we're doing with CBD and stuff like that again, within the overall infrastructure within Tilray, we have that. And, President Trump, from his social media, where he's come out and tweeted numerous things. And like I said before, I don't like playing the guessing game, but one of the big things which in Tilray, which you really got to take serious here, is what we have in intellectual properties, what we have over the last 7 years, what we've built in research, whether from our medical standpoint, what we have in regards to THC, CBD, what we have with our strains, what we have today in our genetic banks out there, what we have in regards to people and know-how. And if I had to bring every one of them to the U.S. and emerge upon it pretty quickly, I could be in business within 30 days. With our relationships and potential relationships with pharma companies, and would we join up with one of them? So when something happens, there's lots of potential out there for us to join up with a pharma company, do a strategic opportunity there. If there's something happens and we want to join up, with a drinks company, there's something happening there. So, with that, as I go back and say again, there is so much, and that's what's, again, within Tilray. We have 5.5 million square feet of grow and processing facilities in Canada. We have 2 facilities in Europe. We have 8 breweries in the U.S. today with infrastructure. We have 900 distributors out there. We have sales, marketing people. We have all the infrastructure set up, whether from a finance group, from a banking group out there. So it's, the infrastructure within Tilray today and the IP is tremendous. And with our balance sheet where it is, if we had to go out there and buy something or partner up with someone, there's a lot of companies, during the years have reached out to me that sort of looked like, should we do some strategic things? It didn't make sense at the time because they really couldn't bring anything but their money. And that's not what we were looking for. If we're going to do something with someone, we want them to be able to help us to advance this business.
Okay, good to know. Lots of opportunities. Sky's the limit, really. And you mentioned about things happening. On our previous interview, you said that you weren't going to go out and buy crypto or anything like that tomorrow. I guess you didn't do it tomorrow, but you did recently announce that you acquired Bitcoin, right, on your balance sheet as a treasury asset.
Yeah, and again, listen. Again, I'm somebody that's always looking ahead and what is the next avenue and what is the next opportunity out there. And listen, again, I see cannabis and Bitcoin. There's a lot of similarities within that. And again, if you look at the consumers and you look at our investors, they're investing in Bitcoin. And should we be taking Bitcoin in our brewery? Should we be taking Bitcoin to buy online? Could you buy Tilray stock with Bitcoin and the exchange there? So with that, we're not becoming a crypto company, and from a standpoint there, we've gone out and bought some Bitcoin to put it on our balance sheet. And just before I was here, one of the reasons a little delayed, I was having a crypto meeting on some of the stuff that we can do. So again, Tilray is a diversified company.
Yeah.
Wellness now, healthy eating, healthy food is something that we're continuously looking at. We built a great business within our Manitoba Harvest business, with our drink business within a highball. And we see there's opportunities within that. So crypto, yes, but are we going to become a cryptocurrency company? Absolutely not. Would we look to put it on our balance sheet and look at opportunities? Would we look at using crypto to be able to purchase our products online or medical products using a brewery? Absolutely. So there's some of the things that we're looking at. And because we see a lot of similarities and strategic opportunities with our retail investors, which we really appreciate.
Okay, great. That's exciting. And you mentioned on the call as well, Solana, Ethereum were sort of runner-ups. What would you say, like what sort of criteria are you looking for when it comes to evaluating, which cryptos to add as a balance sheet, like a treasury asset, if you will?
Listen, what we can make sure is we can manage it. Our auditors let us, put it on our balance sheet. We know it's secure. And that's the big thing, is the security. Because man, there's a lot of hype out there, and there's a lot of stuff going on in this crypto world, and I want to make sure for
rug pulls
my shareholders and my investors that I'm not pulled into some scheme, but I can make sure one day I don't look at my wallet and it's empty, and there's good security around it, and there's liquidity also when I want to get out, and ultimately there's value.
Absolutely.
I can see that there's value being created if we're buying crypto, no matter what it is, that we see this one day that there is going to be, a stock and price appreciation.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I know, like, for example, you mentioned payments. I don't know if you've ever looked into XRP. It's actually built for payments. That was sort of their main use case. Have you heard anything, or have you looked into XRP at all?
I haven't looked particularly into XRP, but I will tell you this here. Our IT group under Lloyd Brathwaite and our team, they are looking at every which way. And, the whole big thing is security of this here. Yeah. And again, when we know we're taking it, we're getting real value here. And that's the big thing. But our guys, let me tell you, there's meetings all the time, and we've interviewed many, many, many firms and spent time with firms and have offers. And there's a lot of stuff we walked away from because we just didn't feel secure and safe, with it.
Yeah. And XRP was going through a lawsuit too.
We got to make sure too that our auditors allow us to accept it and that too, because that is something we don't want to go offside with PwC.
Totally. Well, you know what? I got so many questions. We'll have to save them for another time. I know we kind of got cut short here today.
Give me one more. One or two more. I know Barron's giving me the high side here, but I will take you one or two more.
Okay. Sure. Well, you mentioned tokenization of your stock. What sort of timeline would you be looking at with that? Is that a priority at the moment?
I think it's not a priority, but we're looking at it. I'm a big believer in AI, and I use it personally. My AI app on Copilot on a regular basis. And I think the big thing here is, listen, we're using it in our business more and more every day, whether it's our growth facilities, whether it's developing our new products, whether it's our packaging, whether it's just global research on cannabis demand, beer demand, etc. So, from a standpoint there, it's here to stay, and it's a big part of Tilray's business today. And whether we're working with Microsoft on Copilot, and it's something that's helping us tremendously. It's our yields within our flower, and as you heard me say before, in developing new products and what consumers are doing and getting intel and data. Listen, data is the key, and AI is a big important part of that.
Well, that's all for today. I really appreciate your time once again. It's always a pleasure. I love watching the Tilray story unfold, and Just super excited to be a proud shareholder. And like I said, really appreciate your time. Who knows, maybe next time we'll have you on, there'll be a surprise excise tax cut or something like that in the 2026 budget, or we get rescheduling or something better.
Just to wrap up again, here's the thing. I run a business, and you run a business to grow your business, but there's so much regulatory built around our business and our growth. And that's a big thing the team has to deal with and has to overcome. And I always say this here. If in Canada today, if I could sell my drinks, whether it's in convenience stores, I could sell my drinks in restaurants, how big my drink business could be. If I could sell our medical business in drugstores within Canada, and you can go into a drugstore and buy it, how big, that would be. And if excise tax, and Tilray pays well over 100+ million Canadian dollars in excise tax, if that cut in half today, what that would drive to the bottom line. In the U.S., listen, if rescheduling happened and it's a $10 billion business and we got 3 to 5%, there's $400 to $500 million. If we could sell drinks today in the U.S., even our hemp drink, Delta 9, in 50 states instead of 13, how big that would be. And the opportunities in more and more countries, which we're seeing in Europe, expand and allow medical cannabis. So from a regulatory standpoint, there's lots, of controls and regulation in place that stops us from expanding our business. But Tilray still finds ways to grow our business where we can in those markets. And we still find, whether it's acquisitions and other categories that are adjacencies to the cannabis industry, the beverage business, what Tilray should be expanding in.
Yeah, well, like I said, I'm super proud of the team over there. You guys did a fantastic job, and like I said, seems to be shaping up as a transformative period for the company, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Thank you very much for having me on, and have a great day.